Hi there and welcome back to MassiveSynth.com tutorials. This is the fourth and final installment of the Glitch Hop series of tutorials we've been doing this month, and in this tutorial we're going to be making a sequence bass sound. So let's start off by creating a new sound in Massive and start programming these oscillators. So for oscillator 1 we're going to have a duck organ, and we're going to take the pitch down by 1 octave. I'm going to pull the wavetable position to around halfway, keep the intensity on full and the amp on full, and we can just route it to filter 1 because I'm going to be using filter 1 in this sound. And we're also going to make it a bend plus, so there we go. So we've got quite a nice solid tone already. We can bring in oscillator 2 now, take the pitch of this down 2 octaves. This is going to be a rough math 2, and keep the wavetable position all the way to the right, pull the intensity all the way to the left, and make this our bend plus as well, and just maybe pull the amp down a bit. So that's just kind of helping the shape and the tone of the sound quite nicely there, that second oscillator. And I'm also going to use a modulation oscillator here, keep the pitch at 0, and it's just going to be the phase mode what we're going to be using, and we're going to be modulating the phase of oscillator 1. So that's quite a big effect on the sound, that phase. So keep the amount quite low, round about there. And the next thing we could look at here is the voicing section. Just make sure it's in monophonic, and going to take the glide right down, so we're not going to get any glide in between those notes there. And whilst we're on the oscillator tab also, we can look at this oscillator phases, and we want to click this restart via gate, so the sound re-triggers the phases of the oscillators with each key that we press, so we get a nice consistent tone. Sometimes we can play around with these sliders and it just helps it shape the tone a bit more, but I'm not really hearing any significant difference there, so we could probably just keep them all the way to the left. The next thing we could do is set up some of these envelopes. For the amp envelope, envelope 4, just pull the attack right down, so getting a nice sharp attack with the sound. And for envelope 1 we're going to use this as to modulate the intensity of oscillator 2. So we can drag the crosshair over there into the first slot and drag the amount up, because something I noticed actually, if I turn that off, it's just playing this sound. You get quite a nice sound when you play around with this intensity amount here. So what I thought would be cool if we could just re-trigger that kind of movement with each time a key is pressed. Use this envelope 1 to do that. So drag it over to the intensity, drag the modulation amount up to kind of round about there, and then I want to back off the attack of this envelope and maybe just push the sustain level up, and also check this box, trigger 0 reset, so the envelope re-triggers with each new key that is pressed. Could maybe push that. So you're just getting that sort of like kind of nice bit of movement with the sound each time you hit a new key. So the next thing we could set up with the sound is the filter. I'm going to use a bandpass filter for this sound, and pull the cutoff amount down for now. Keep the bandwidth around halfway and the resonance around halfway. Make sure the volume of the filter is all the way up and the mix slider is all the way up as well, so we just hear a mix 1. And then we're going to use a performer here to modulate the cutoff of this filter. So turn this into performer, drag the crosshair over into the first modulation slot and drag the amount up to kind of round about there. And then we need to start programming this performer. So first things first, I want to sync this performer. I want to take the ratio down to 1/8, and I'm going to pull the steps of the performer just over to 8. So and push the X phase seek up all the way to the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to program two different sequences here, and it's going to be quite a nice variation with the sound, being able to flick through between the top sequence and the bottom sequence to just get a different shape with the kind of sound. So go ahead and hit the load curve button, and we can start loading some curves into this top sequence. Okay, so that's a nice sort of start. That's the first sequence of the sound, which is pretty cool sound. And let's move this down to the bottom here, and let's program a little sort of kind of variation sequence down here. So So there, now what we've got is we've got two different sequences with the same sound. So or even like a mix between both sequences sounds pretty cool also. There's something I've forgotten to mention actually, is in the oscillator tab and the pitch bend amount here, we've got it +2 and +2 and -2, and if you notice we're getting a bit of pitch bend with the sound. It's a pitch bend I've programmed in, but I wanted to accentuate that a little bit further. At the moment, at the very maximum amount of pitch bend we can have is +2 semitones and down 2 semitones, but I wanted to change that to +12 and -12. So we're getting a bit more of an extreme pitch bend here. Sounds pretty cool. So I think the last thing to do really with the sound is program in some effects and some distortion down here. So I'm going to turn the feedback amount on and just push the amp up slightly. And for effects 1, we're just going to use a classic tube. Pull the dry wet down. Keep the drive around about halfway, maybe just a little bit less. And that's just beefing up the sound a bit. We can have a chorus as well, which sounds pretty cool. Just keeping everything pretty much the same apart from the dry wet down. So might just add a little bit of shelf, high shelf to the sound. A bit more high frequency. And push the master up a little bit actually. And also in insert 1, I'm going to have a sine shaper, but just pull the dry wet and the drive down. And so now we've got this kind of nice cool sequence bass sound that we've also got two variations of the sequence. So we could play around with that X fade slider and just create quite a cool sequence just using one or two kind of MIDI notes really. The final thing to check is the routing section, and just make sure that this insert's coming after the filter. And that's our sound come together there. It's a kind of sequence bass sound for kind of glitch hop stuff, really. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you found it useful and insightful. Any questions, then get in touch, let us know, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.